بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما إلى علمنا ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Inshallah we'll continue with our mudarasa of the book al-Muwatta, the Imam Malik ibn Anas rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 179 after the Hijrah, bi riwayati Abi Mus'ab Ahmed ibn Abi Bakr al-Qasim al-Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'ah, who died in the year 242 after the Hijrah. And we've completed the chapter in this riwayah that goes unnamed, but is also known as Bab Wuqut as-Salat or Bab Waqt as-Salat. Some of them mention it Bab Miqat as-Salat. And then we completed the chapter Bab Ma Ja'a fi Dhikri Waqt al-Jum'ah. Sah? Ma Ja'a Ma Warada. Is it Ma Ja'a or Ma Warada? Ma Ja'a fi Waqti Salat al-Jum'ah. ما جاء في وقت الجمعة. ما جاء في وقت الجمعة. We've completed that chapter. And now in front of us we have the chapter باب من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. كذا من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. باب في من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. باب في من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. لكن قبل أن نبدأ بهذا الباب, before we begin with this chapter, let's review the previous chapter, Bab Man Ma Ja'a fi Waqti Salat Ma Ja'a fi Waqt al-Jum'ah. Let's review that chapter and this chapter, Babun fi Man Adraka Rak'atan min as-Salat, as well as the chapter that comes after it, Babun fi Duluk al-Shams. كذا باب ما جاء في تفسير دلوك الشمس. أحسن الله عليكم. باب ما جاء في تفسير دلوك الشمس. And the reason why, if you can't tell, my memory is shaky. I like to preserve it. So it's good to constantly review. I think that last chapter, because it was so small, we didn't, or I didn't, review it enough for it to be solid. Right? The first chapter, we reviewed it at least 13, 14 times. Every hadith in it for the most part, right? Last chapter, we only reviewed it maybe once, and then we went on to exercise. So let's cover that chapter. Everybody, each chapter only has 3 or 2 narrations in it. So we'll cover all 3 of those chapters, inshallah. مراجعة. من يبدأ ولا أنا؟
Where are you now?
Okay.
I
want. You know how to play? Paper, scissors. So you got paper beats rock, scissor beats paper, and paper beats rock, scissor beats paper, and rock beats scissor. Never played that before?
No.
Rock, paper, scissor. You got on 3. Rock, paper, scissor, shoot. So that's both scissors.
So it's even.
It's tied. Rock, paper, scissor. You gotta wait to the third one. Rock, paper, scissor, shoot. So I threw out scissor again, so I beat paper. يلا أبدأ. قال أبو مصعب قال مالك باب في ما جاء في وقت الصلاة. باب فيما جاء في وقت الجمعة. باب فيما جاء في وقت الجمعة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن عمه أبي سهيل بن مالك عن أبيه أنه قال كنت أرى تنفيسة لأقيل بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه يوم الجمعة تطرح إلى جدار المسجد الغربي، فإذا غشيت التنفيسة كلها ظل الجدار خرج عمر بن الخطاب ثم يرجع بعد صلاة الجمعة فيقيل قائلة الضحى. كذا. You got it. I want it perfect. It ain't good enough. It ain't perfect. طيب.
Just a hadith.
نعم. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن عمه أبي سهيل بن مالك عن أبيه أنه قال كنت أرى تنفيسة لأقيل بن أبي طالب تطرح يوم الجمعة إلى جدار المسجد الغربي، فإذا غشيت التنفيسة الجدار فإذا غشيت التنفيسة كلها ظل الجدار خرج عمر بن الخطاب ثم يرجع بعد صلاة الجمعة فيقيل قائلة الضحى. طيب. قال أبو مصعب أخبرنا مالك عن عمرو بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي صليط أنه قال أن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه كان يصلي أن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه صلى الجمعة بالمدينة وصلى العصر بملل. قال مالك وذلك للتهجير وسرعة السير. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن يحيى أن عمرو بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي صليط أنه قال كنا نصلي الجمعة مع عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه فننصرف وما للجدار ظل. عثمان ممنوع من الصرف. كنا نصلي الجمعة مع عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه فننصرف وما للجدار ظل. طيب. قال مالك باب في من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن ابن شهاب عن أبي سلمة بن عبد الرحمن عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنهما أنه قال كان أن عثمان عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه كان يقول إذا فاتتك الركعة فقد فاتتك السجدة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك أنه بلغه أن عبد الله بن عمر وزيد بن ثابت رضي الله تعالى عنهما كان يقولان إذا من أدرك الركعة فقد أدرك السجدة. من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك أنه بلغه أن أبا هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه كان يقول إذا أدرك من أدرك الركعة فقد أدرك السجدة ومن فاتته قراءة أم القرآن فقد فاتته خير كثير. قال مالك باب ما جاء في تفسير دلوك الشمس. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك النافع عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال دلوك الشمس كان يقول دلوك الشمس ميلها. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن داود بن الحصين أنه قال when you go and you gotta do like because when you go and you gotta get to قال so they imply أنه قال أخبرني مخبر أن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما كان يقول دلوك الشمس إذا فاء الفيل وغسق الليل اجتماع ليل وظلمته. أحسن الله عليكم. طيب, so I still got some tightening up to do. Who's next?
باب ما جاء في وقت الجمعة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن عمه أبي سهيل بن مالك عن أبيه أنه قال كنت أرى تنفيسة لعقيل ابن أبي طالب تطرح يوم الجمعة إلى جدار المسجد الغربي فإذا غشي تنفسة كل هذه الجدار خرج عمر بن الخطاب ثم يعج بعد صلاة الجمعة فيقيم قائمة الضحى. قال أبو مصعب أخبرنا مالك عن عمري بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي سليط أن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه صلى الجمعة بالمدينة وصلى العصر بملل. قال مالك وذلك للتهجير وسورة سير. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن عمري بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي سليط أنه قال كنا نصلي الجمعة مع عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه ثم ننصرف وما للجدار ذل. قال أبو موسى باب في من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن ابن شهاب عن أبي سلمة بن عبد الرحمن عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن نافع أن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنهما كان يقول من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك سجدة. إذا فاتتك ركعة فقد فاتتك سجدة.
Now you see here, just for the sake of benefit, yeah, that's the Nafi and Abdullah ibn Umar, إذا فاتتك الركعة. But you see here, أنه كان يقول. You see, they wrote it out that time. After an, if somebody says, to get to somebody saying, you have to say that they said. You can't say like, an fadl qala Muhammad. You see what I'm saying? If you say that, it doesn't flow right. You got to say, an fadl annahu qala Muhammad. You see what I'm saying?
إذا فتتك ركعة فقد فتتك سجدة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك أنه بلغه أن عبد الله بن عمر وزيد بن ثابت كان يقولان من أدرك الركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن أنه بلغه أن أبو هريرة كان يقول من أدرك الركعة فقد أدرك سجدة ومن فاتته قراءته بالقرآن فقد فاته خير كثير.
الذي بعده.
باب ما جاء في تفسير دلوك الشمس. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن نافع أن عبد الله بن عمر كان يقول دلوك الشمس ميلها. قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن داود بن الحسين أنه قال
You could say both ways here. You could say قال أخبرني. Yeah.
قال
أخبرني
مخبر أن عبد الله بن عباس كان يقول دلوك الشمس إذا فاء الفيل وغسق الليل اجتماع الليل وظلمته.
No. If you said أنه قال, you wouldn't say قال twice. Because you would say عن داود بن الحسين قال أخبرني, or you could say عن داود بن الحسين أنه قال أخبرني. Right? تفضل. عن أبيه أنه
قال
كنت أرى
تنفسا بعقيل بن أبي طالب تروح يوم الجمعة إلى جدار المسجد الغربي فإذا غشيت تنفست كلها ظل الجدار خرج عمر الخطاب ثم يرجع بعد صلاة العصر
بعد صلاة
الجمعة فيقيل قائلة الضحى. قال موسى قال حدثنا مالك
أخبرنا
مالك قال موسى قال أخبرنا مالك عن عمرو بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي سليط أنه قال أن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه صلى الجمعة بالمدينة وصلى الجمعة وقال مالك وذلك للتهجير وسرعة السير. قال أبو موسى قال حدثنا مالك عن عمرو بن يحيى المازني عن ابن أبي سليط أنه قال كنا نصلي الجمعة مع عثمان بن عفان رضي الله تعالى عنه ثم ننصرف وما للجدار ظل. قال موسى باب في من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة. قال موسى قال حدثنا مالك عن نافع عن
ابن شهاب
عن ابن شهاب عن أبي سلمة بن عبد الرحمن عن أبي هريرة أنه قال عن أبي هريرة.
لا جزء عن أبي هريرة
أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. قال موسى قال حدثنا مالك عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر
أن عبد الله
بن عمر قال
ابن الخطاب
رضي الله تعالى عنهما إذا فاتتك السجدة
كان يقول
كان يقول إذا فاتتك السجدة فقد فات إذا فاتتك السجدة فقد فاتتك السجدة.
نعم، إذا فاتتك الركعة.
إذا فاتتك الركعة فقد فاتتك السجدة. قال ابن موسى قال حدثنا مالك أنه بلغه أن عمر بن الخطاب
عبد
أن
الله
عبد الله بن عمر وزيد بن حارث وزيد بن ثابت كان يقولان من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع من أدرك الركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. قال أبو موسى قال حدثنا مالك أنه بلغه أن أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه كان يقول من فاتته الإمام من
أدرك
ركعة
الركعة
من أدرك الركعة فقد أدرك الصلاة
السجدة.
فقد أدرك السجدة. ومن فاتته قراءة أم القرآن فقد فاته خير كثير.
ممتاز.
قال موسى باب في تفسير دلوك الشمس.
ما جاء
في تفسير دلوك الشمس. قال موسى قال حدثنا مالك عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر كان يقول دلوك الشمس ميلها. قال موسى قال حدثنا مالك عن
داود
بن الحسين عن عبد الله
أنه قال
أن عبد الله بن عباس
أخبرني
مخبر أن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال
كان يقول
دلوك الشمس إذا فاء الفيء
وغسق
الليل اجتماع الليل وظلمته.
نعم، ممتاز. حفظت. طيب خلاص. طيب فهذا ينبغي, this is necessary in order to keep the hadith preserved. Right now we've arrived at how many?
We're on 16 now.
6. Where as far as memorization? 16.
Oh no, that's 21 right there.
Right, we've finished now 21, and so as it goes further and further, it's going to get harder and harder. There's going to be hadith that resemble each other. There are going to be isnads that resemble each other. There are going to be things that don't have isnads. There are going to be statements of Imam Malik. It's going to be a lot more information to preserve. So you have to make sure to keep a muraja, a schedule of going over what you already did. طيب, in front of us today we have babun fi man adraka rak'atan min as-salat. Babun fi man adraka rak'atan min as-salat. And he begins with the hadith. He says, قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن ابن شهاب. Ibn Shihab, we've already learned about Ibn Shihab, and he was Muhammad ibn Muslim, ibn Ubaidillah, ibn Abdullah, ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. Muhammad ibn Muslim, ibn Ubaidillah, ibn Abdullah, ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, Abu Bakr al-Madani, who died in the year 124, 125 Hijri, the leader of the youth of the Tabi'een, and from the first people to compile hadith. Abu Bakr ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. Whenever you see somebody say Ibn Shihab, then they're talking about Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. And this is from the more prominent teachers of Imam Malik. This is from the more prominent teachers of Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala. He narrates on Abi Salama ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. So he says, Ibn Shihab, and Abi Salama ibn Abdul Rahman. Abi Salama ibn Abdul Rahman is Abi Salama ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Auf al-Zuhri, right? Min Bani Zahra as well, al-Qurashi. And he is from the uncles, i.e. the great uncles of Abu Mus'ab. We've talked about before that Abu Mus'ab he goes back in his nasab to Abdurrahman ibn Auf through Abdurrahman's son Mus'ab. And so Abu Salama, who was another son of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, would be from the uncles of Abu Mus'ab, the one who narrates this riwayah of the Muwatta. Abu Salama, he is from the people that his name is his kunya. His name is his kunya. Right? We have people like Abu Bakr, they have a name. Their name being Abdullah, or some people say Atiq. Abu Hurairah, he has a name, Abdullah or Abdul Rahman, and so many different opinions, right? But they were famous for their kunya. As far as Abu Salama, then the majority of them say that his name is his kunya, right? Abu Salama is actually his name. Some of them say his name is Abdullah or other than that, but this wasn't strange that the person would be given a name as a kunya. Who can think of somebody else who their name is their kunya?
From people or
From the people, from the people.
Abu Bakr or Zayd?
La, that's not his name. His name is Abdullah.
Talking about Zubayr's son. Are you talking about from the people in general or from the scholars?
From the people. But meaning the people is the people in hadith, not the people that you know today.
I thought you meant today.
Yeah. What was the Prophet's daughter? Fatima. Kulthum. That's her name. Even though it's a kunya, that was her name, right? So it's not strange that a person's name would be their kunya. And this was the case of Abu Salama ibn Abdurrahman ibn Auf al-Zuhri. Abu Salama, he was born somewhere in the 20s after the Hijrah. He was born somewhere in the 20s after the Hijrah. And so obviously he didn't reach the Prophet ﷺ, but he reached a large number of Sahaba. And this is something that some of them, he was from the fuqaha of Medina, and the scholars of Medina and the leaders of the scholars of Medina. And some of them included him in what is known as al-fuqaha as-sab'a, the 7 scholars of Medina, right? إذا قيل من في الفقه سبعة أبهر روايتهم عن علمي ليس بخارجة فهم عبيد الله عروة قاسمون سعيد أبو بكر سليمان خارجة. These 7 people were known as the fuqaha as-sab'a, right? Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Utbah ibn Mas'ud, and Urwa ibn Zubair, and Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, right? We've already learned about some of these people. And Abu Bakr ibn Abdurrahman ibn al-Harith ibn Hisham. This one is the one to remember. Abu Bakr ibn Abdurrahman ibn al-Harith ibn Hisham. Was Sulaiman ibn Yasir. We skipped Sa'id ibn Musayyib. And Kharija ibn Zayd ibn Thabit. These 7 people. إذا قيل من في الفقه سبعة أبهر. If it's asked or if it's said to you, who are 7 oceans of fiqh? إذا قيل من في الفقه سبعة أبهر روايتهم عن علم ليس بخارجة. They never narrate anything outside of knowledge. فهم عبيد الله عروة قاسم. Then they are then they are Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Utbah ibn Mas'ud, Urwa, yani Urwa ibn Zubair, Qasimun, Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, Sa'idun, Abu Bakr, Sulaiman, Kharija. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman ibn al-Harith ibn Hisham, Sulaiman ibn Yasir, and Kharija ibn Zayd ibn Thabit. These 7 are known as the fuqaha as-sab'a. Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman ibn al-Harith ibn Hisham, he is, some people say no, it's not him. One of the fuqaha as-sab'a is Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar. So they replace Abu Bakr with Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar. They replace Abu Bakr with Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And some people say no, Instead of Salim or Abu Bakr, it's Abu Salama ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. And so you see like this, he is from the most noble and notariable people of the Tabi'een, wa kibar al-Tabi'een, wa mukthir. He's from the people who were abundant in their hadith, right? He was more abundant than people like Sa'id even, right? And he was compared to people like Urwa ibn al-Zubair in their abundance, right? You have people like Salim who used to narrate a lot of hadith. Qasim ibn Muhammad didn't narrate that many hadith comparatively. Sa'id ibn Musayyib didn't narrate that many hadith comparatively. But when you talk about people who were abundant in their hadith, Urwa ibn al-Zubair and Abu Salama and who did I just say? Urwa ibn Zubair, Abu Salama, ibn Abdul Rahman, and Salim ibn Abdullah, right? These were people who were abundant in their hadith. From the things that they mention about Abu Salama is that he used to disagree a lot with Ibn Abbas. He used to disagree a lot with Ibn Abbas, which caused him to not narrate abundantly from Ibn Abbas. And so he missed out on the knowledge of Ibn Abbas. So that's something to notice, right? This is a scholar from the scholars of hadith, a student from the tabi'een, from the children of the Sahaba, right? Him and Ibn Abbas are closer in age than others from the Sahaba. Ibn Abbas, 22 years after the Hijrah, would have been what? He was born 3 years before the Hijrah. If he was born 3 years before the Hijrah, 22 at the Hijrah, he would have been 10 or 13. He might have been 20, right? So they were about a 20-year difference. The point is that he disagreed a lot with Ibn Abbas, which caused him to miss out on the knowledge of Ibn Abbas. But in spite of that, he was from the people who was abundant on Abu Hurairah. He was from the people that were abundant on Abu Hurairah, right? He's one of these scholars, and there's going to be several of them where they're total jama, right? When it comes to memorizing asanid, you're going to find out that certain people always narrate from certain people, right? And they call that a total jama, right? And he's one of the people who has a popular total jama on Abi Hurairah. And it's important to know those things because they're going to help you out in other fields of hadith. So that is Abu Salama ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. He died in the year 94. And what do we say the year 94 was? Huh? Naam, Am al-Fuqaha. It was the year of the scholar, meaning the year a lot of the scholars died. We mentioned from his classmates who died in that year, Urwa ibn al-Zubair and Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib and Abu Salama, they all died in that year. Likewise, Zayn al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Hussein, and likewise, Atta ibn Yasar, we mentioned him, he died in that year. All of these people, a lot of scholars died in this year that was known as Am al-Fuqaha, which was year 94 after the Hijrah. Naam, he says, An Abi Hurairah. وَقَدْ تَقَدَّمَ أَبُو هُرَيْرَةَ. We've already talked about Abu Hurairah, Abdul Rahman ibn Sakhr, who died in the year 57 or 58 after the Hijrah, from the mukthirin, from those who were abundant in their hadith on the Prophet ﷺ. Some of them saying his hadith reaching 5,000, 5,374 or 5,734. I want to say, or 5,400. It's 5,374. How many hadith did they say that Abu Hurairah narrated on the Prophet ﷺ? It's 5,000. I want to say 3,074, 374. Added a hadith Abi Hurairah. Oh, that's right, the Wi-Fi is not working here. Added a hadith Abi Hurairah. Added a hadith Abi Hurairah. 5,374. He narrated 5,374. So he's the most abundant. Rawiyatu Sahaba. They used to say he was the narrator of the Sahaba. Abu Hurairah, Abdul Rahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi, who died in the year 57 or more likely 58, right after Aisha, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. He said that أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. Whoever catches a rak'ah of the salah, then he has caught the salah. من أدرك. الإدراك الإحاطة بالشيء كله. To completely surround and encompass something. So من أدرك ركعة, whoever completely catches a rak'ah, then he completely catches the salah. This hadith, the first thing that we have to say about this hadith is something that we've already said. And that is, when you read a hadith, how do you understand it? Can you understand it based on what you know? I'm asking a question. Can you read a hadith and understand it based on what you already know? When you read the hadith, you got to understand it based on what it's saying. So even though you know the answer, you can't use the answer you know to explain the hadith until you have a proof to understand it that way. Whoever catches a rak'ah, then he's caught the whole salah. What's that mean on the surface?
He didn't miss any?
Yeah, he didn't miss any. If you prayed one rak'ah, then you did what? Then you prayed the whole salah. On the surface, that's what this hadith says. Man adraka rak'atan, faqad adraka as-salah. Whoever catches a rak'ah, then he has caught the entire salah. Is that what this hadith means? Absolutely not. By consensus, nobody has understood this hadith to mean if you pray one rak'ah, then it's as good as if you prayed the whole salah. You have to finish the rest of the salah with it. And like this, it's come in some of the versions of the hadith with Ibn Umar. Man adraka rak'atin min ayyi salatin kan. Whoever catches a rak'ah from any salat it is, then he has caught the salat, except that he has to complete what he missed. هكذا جاء في رواية عند ابن عمر, right, عند النسائي. Whoever catches a rak'ah from any salat, regardless of what salat it is, then he's caught the salat, except he has to complete what he missed. So that shows us that a person can't take this hadith and understand it on its surface, even though the surface might say if you caught a rak'ah, then you've caught the salat. No, you have to complete the prayer. You have to finish the prayer. And this is going to be something we're going to have to talk about in this hadith, completing the prayer, how to complete the prayer. But we'll put a pin into that conversation. But this hadith is a hadith that deals with what? Completing the prayer, right? This hadith is a hadith, even though it doesn't mention it in this version, it's a hadith that deals with what? Completing the prayer. And so when you talk about how to complete the prayer, that's a conversation you can have in this hadith. The second conversation, what does this hadith mean? Man adraka rak'ah, faqad adraka min as-salati faqad adraka as-salat. Some people say that this hadith is a replica, or should we say a different version of the hadith of Abi Hurairah that we've already learned regarding catching the salah. What's the hadith of Abi Hurairah that we already learned? لا بالإسناد. لا لا.
من صلاة الصبح.
You tell me. عن عطاء بن يسار
وعن بسر بن سعيد
وعن بسر بن سعيد وعن الأعرج
أن رسول أن
يحدثون
حديثونه عن أبي هريرة
أي.
رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من أدراك
You
من
it's your
أدراك
hadith.
ركعة من الصبح قبل أن تطلع الشمس فقد أدراك الصبح ومن أدراك ركعة من العصر قبل أن تغرب الشمس فقد أدراك العصر.
Some of the scholars say that this hadith that's in front of us today, the hadith of Abu Salama and Abi Hurairah, is the same as the hadith of Ata and Busr and A'raj and Abi Hurairah. It's the same hadith, just slightly different words. And they say this because there's another hadith from Abu Salama that Imam Malik will bring later, the same thing. On Abu Salama, on Abi Hurairah, من أدرك ركعة من العصر to the end of it. He starts with Asr in that version. So they say all of these are the same hadith, just different wordages. It's the same hadith. And we see in this the permissibility of narrating a hadith by meaning. This is what some of them say. And so if that's the case, then the explanation of this hadith is the same as the explanation of the hadith of Abi Hurairah previously. And what was that hadith talking about?
Caught the rak'ah before the sun's.
We specifically mentioned that hadith was talking about catching the what?
The first rak'ah.
What was the chapter called? Waqt. It's about catching the time. The previous hadith of Abu Hurairah is about catching the what? The time. So you have to understand that. That hadith about Abu Hurairah from A'raj and Busr and Ata is about catching the time. من أدرك ركعة من الصبح قبل أن تطلع الشمس فقد أدرك الصبح. Right? That's about catching the what? Catching the time. What does that hadith deal with? We talked about the hadith of catching the time deals with issues of who has to pray and who doesn't. Right? If a woman comes off of her period and there's enough time for a rak'ah, does she have to pray? That's what that hadith deals with. If a person catches a rak'ah before the sunrise, can he complete his salat? That's what that hadith deals with. If a child grows up, right, before sunrise, if a person gains consciousness, if a person's at home before they travel, right, all of it is about who has to pray and who doesn't as it relates to the time. That's what that hadith is about. And so some people say this hadith is the same thing. So you would use that hadith as a resource to trigger in your mind the different opinions about who has to pray at what times. So if your wife comes to you and says, I came on my period and there was right after the adhan of dhuhr, and now I'm off, do I have to make up dhuhr? What do you say? Right? You use this hadith to remind you about the disagreement in this opinion, or to remind you about what your opinion is in this issue. You see what I'm saying? Well, man adraka rak'ah, did you come off of your period enough? I mean, did you come on after the adhan long enough to make salat or rak'ah? Then maybe you need to make it up. Or, well, some scholars say you don't need to make up anything because you were allowed to not pray it. You see what I'm saying? And the same thing vice versa. Use that hadith to trigger the conversation of who has to pray. Man adraka rak'atan min as-subh min al-asr, right? Faqad adraka as-salat. That has to deal with the time. That's what some people say this hadith means. Other scholars say, no, this hadith means something completely different, right? Even though there's versions of Abu Salama and versions of other people on Abu Hurairah that make it seem like it's the same hadith, just transmitted by meaning, some people say, no, the hadith is completely different. It means something completely different. From them are those that say the meaning of this hadith is, because you have to imply something. Whoever catches a rak'ah from the salat, then he has caught the reward of the salat, the virtue of the salat. And so they say this has to deal with the one who catches the jama'ah before they finish. If you catch them with a rak'ah, then you get all of the reward as if you caught the entire salat. Wadah? So some of them say if you catch a rak'ah with the jama'ah, it's as if you caught the entire salat with the jama'ah reward-wise. What y'all think of that one? Why not? Well, we said you're going to have to imply something. You're going to have to imply something regardless. It doesn't mention time either. So the people who said it means time, they're saying the implication in this hadith is time because of these other hadith. And it's basically just a different version of these other hadith. That's why we're implying time. Other scholars say, no, those hadith mean time, but this hadith doesn't mean time. This hadith means reward. So what do you think about that opinion? That whoever catches a rak'ah from the salat with the congregation, then he has caught the entirety of the reward. That's one of the possible meanings of this hadith. What do you think about that meaning?
The reward of someone who prayed Jama'ah.
Meaning, if the jama'ah, what's the reward of praying with the jama'ah? 25, 27 times better. This is the fadl of jama'ah. A person comes late. He catches them in the last rak'ah. Does he get the same reward as if he prayed every rak'ah 25 to 27 times better?
There's a hadith.
Imply that, meaning then it's...
In this hadith, so you understand what you say?
There's another hadith. The Prophet said,
What's the chain?
I don't remember the right words, but he said, even the people who pray like Takbirat al-Ihram after the Imam, the reward differs, right?
The reward differs?
Yeah.
Okay, so he says no. So you say that this can't be the understanding, not because it's the right understanding, but because it's the wrong understanding. The Prophet said that if you come late, you don't get the reward. So we have to find this hadith. I don't know that one personally.
No, the hadith says some people, they're in the salah, they think about something else.
Well, that's different. That's thinking about something else. We're talking about a person, I came in and they're on the last rak'ah. And I catch them in the last rak'ah. Right? My salat is good, their salat is good. If I was there from the beginning, how good is my salat? If I was there from the beginning, my salat is 25 to 27 times better. Salat al-rajli fil jama'a afdal min salat al-fadh bi 25 daraja, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if I was there from the beginning, my salat would be what? 25, or in another narration, 27 times better. But what if I caught them in the last rak'ah? Did I pray in jama'ah? But I only pray what in jama'ah? One rak'ah. So, okay, let's suppose that this rak'ah is 25 times better than me praying alone. What about the 3 that I have to make up? Because we said this hadith talks about what? How you have to make up. I got to make up 3 rak'ah for dhuhr now. Are those 3 rak'ah 25 times better than me praying alone, even though I'm praying alone right now? Or are those me praying alone and the only rak'ah that's good, 25 to 27 times better, is the first one?
I would say yes.
This hadith, some of the scholars say this hadith is a proof, whoever catches 1 rak'ah, then he catches the whole salat. You catch the whole salat and it's what?
Reward.
And it's reward. You understand how they understand it? That's all you got. Do you understand how they understand it? Like, now that we understand how they understand it, we respond to them and say, no, that don't make no sense. Why?
Because we were not there from the beginning.
Huh?
We were not there. We didn't do
Nope.
the salah.
Because Allah gives the reward regardless, based on your niyyah and what you were trying to do. If you leave your house with the niyyah of going to pray in the masjid, what do you get the reward of? Praying in the masjid. Praying in jama'ah. Did you have to catch a rak'ah? Right? If you catch the people in taslim before they give the salam and you join them and your intention was to catch the jama'ah, what do you get the reward of? Jama'ah. So did you have to catch a rak'ah? If you get to the masjid and the people have already left and went home, but your intention was to catch them and pray in jama'ah, did you get the jama'ah?
The intention.
So why would this hadith mean whoever catches a rak'ah? It wouldn't make sense, because you get that reward regardless. You see what I'm saying? And this is the statement of Abu Hurairah and a large number of other sahaba, that you get the reward, that you're included in the 25 just by your intention, even before leaving the house. So can this hadith, does it make sense that it would mean you get the reward of praying in congregation? So even though it makes sense that you get the reward of congregation, this hadith doesn't make sense, because you get that reward regardless if you catch a rak'ah or not. You see what I'm saying? Like, so we got the time of salat, and they say the reason it means the time of salat is because it's the same as the other hadith of Abi Hurairah. We got the virtue of salat, but the virtue of salat is kind of weak, right? What else is there? If you say that it means something different than Abu Hurairah. And the question I'm asking is, does it mean something than the other hadith of Abu Hurairah? Is this hadith, in Imam Malik's opinion, different than the previous hadith of Abu Hurairah? And you say, what? Why?
Because it's Jama'.
Put it in a different chapter.
He put it in a different chapter. If he put it in a different chapter, what is he telling you? It means something different. Why would I bring it in this chapter if it meant the same thing as the last? The last chapter had to deal with what? Time. And he put it in what chapter? Time. This hadith, does it deal with time? How do you know it don't deal with time? Because he didn't put it in the chapter that deals with time. You see what I'm saying? So obviously this is showing you that the Salaf used to use this hadith in a different way than the previous hadith of Abu Hurairah. So even though there's some people that are saying that this hadith is the same as the last hadith of Abu Hurairah, there's other scholars who say no. And the action of the Salaf is showing you that this hadith is different because they put it in a different chapter. So if it's different and it's not talking about virtue, what else could it be talking about? Well, it's talking about the rak'ah. Whoever catches a rak'ah, he catches the salat. He catches the salat in what way? He catches the salat in the time? No.
That you don't have to make it up.
No, that's the time.
That's the time.
Catches the salat in reward? No, we just said no to that. He catches the salat in
Jama'.
closer in its judgments. The judgments that apply to the salat apply to the person that catches the rak'ah. So if the previous hadith of Abu Hurairah is about the time, this is about the action. Whoever catches a rak'ah in jama'ah, then he has caught the salat in jama'ah. And whatever judgments go along with that, go along to him. What does that mean? For example, from the ways that they would use this hadith, and it was mentioned by Ibn Umar in a different version, whoever catches a rak'at of Jumu'ah before, with the Jama'ah, then let him add another one to it. But if you don't catch the rak'ah, what do you got to do?
Make it up.
You got to pray 4. Because if you didn't catch a rak'ah, did you catch Salat al-Jumu'ah? And if you don't pray Salat al-Jumu'ah, what do you have to do?
Pray the Dhuhr.
You got to pray Dhuhr. So whoever catches a rak'ah, then he's caught the Salat. So if you caught a rak'ah of Jumu'ah with the people, then you can add a rak'ah to it. But if you didn't catch a rak'ah of Jumu'ah with the people, then you can't add the rak'ah to it. You got to pray 4. Right? And this is the opinion of the majority. The majority of the scholars hold this opinion regarding Jumu'ah, except Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa, he says that if you catch any part of Jumu'ah, you've caught Jumu'ah.
In the tahiyyat.
Even as long as you catch them before Taslim, you caught Jumu'ah. This is the view of Abu Hanifa. Because they say the Prophet says, and you're going to see this theme, if you come to the masjid and you found the people praying, then do what? Then join them. And do what after that?
Make out what you missed.
Pray what you catch. فَصَلِّ مَا أَدْرَكْتَ وَقْضِ مَا فَاتَكَ. Pray what you catch and make up what you missed. What did you miss when you joined the people? What did you miss? 2 rak'ah. So pray what you missed. I.e. pray 2 rak'ah. That's what Abu Hanifa uses as his proof in this circumstance. The majority of them, they say, la. If you adrakta rak'ah, then you've adrakta salah. You didn't adrakta rak'ah, so you need to make dhuhr. Right? And the statement of the Prophet, فَصَلِّ مَا أَدْرَكْتَ, I pray with the people, whatever you got with the people, and make up what you missed, i.e. make up what you need to pray besides that. Right? But we see that this hadith is still talking about what? Making up. Another way that this hadith is applicable, that it applies to the action, and you get the same rule as the من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة حكما, right? Not waqtan, but hukman, and the judgments that are given to the salah. The traveling prayer, how many does he pray? Two. Unless he prays behind a resident. Right? If he prays behind a resident, how many does he pray? 4. Tayyib, somebody's traveling. They come into the masjid and they catch the last rak'ah. How many rak'ah do they pray? They pray 4. Because they what?
They catch that.
They caught the salah. If they don't catch the rak'ah and they join the imam, how many do they pray? 2. Imam Malik says 2. Because man adraka rak'ah, faqad adraka as-salah. And you're a traveler, if you catch the imam who's a resident, you have to pray 4. Haka the sunnah. So Imam Malik says if you don't catch the salat, pray 2. Because you didn't catch the prayer. Right? You didn't pray with them. Even though you were with them, la tu'taddu bihi. You don't count it as if you're with them. Even though you have to join them and you have to follow them, it's as if you don't follow them at all. Because you got to pray your own salah. The same way we said about Jum'ah, even though you caught them, you join in them, right? When the imam gives the salam, you stand up, pray 4 rak'ah. Same thing as a traveler, the opposite. You caught them on their 4th rak'ah, but you didn't catch the rak'ah. You caught them on tashahhud. When they give salams, you stand up and you pray how many? 2. This is the opinion of Malik. And you see the opinion of Malik here is balanced. It matches his previous opinion, which was the opinion of the majority in the previous issue of Jumu'ah. But the majority agree with Abu Hanifa in traveling. Ahmed Shafi'i, they agree with Abu Hanifa, and the one who joins the imam after a rak'ah, or he doesn't catch the rak'ah with a resident, they say he needs to pray and make up the rest 4.
He didn't count the rak'ah.
They don't count the rak'ah. He didn't catch the rak'ah.
He didn't.
But they say he needs to make up 4.
Right.
So you see that the majority, Abu Hanifa, stays on his position. You caught the salat, pray what you catch, make up what you missed. In this circumstance, you missed 4 rak'at, pray 4 rak'at. Abu Hanifa's the same on both issues. Imam Malik's the same on both issues. Right? Everybody else, sometimes they're with Imam Malik, sometimes they're with Abu Hanifa. Right? And these are the 2 positions about the traveler if he doesn't catch a rak'ah with the imam that's a resident. Some of them say when you make up, you just pray 2 rak'ah. And some people say, no, when you make up, you pray 4 rak'ah. There's another 2 opinions in this issue, but they're extremely weak. Some of them say, if you only catch 2 or less rak'ah, you pray with the imam, right? You don't have to pray anything else. If you're a traveler and you catch 2 or less, then you only have to pray 2. Because you're a traveler, you weren't there for the 4. But this position is weak. And they break it up into 2 different ways, but either way you break it up, it's the same position and it's weak. So when it comes to the traveler who prays with the imam, if he doesn't catch a rak'ah, what should he do?
Pray the 4.
Pray the 2.
Pray the 2 or pray the 4. We're not worried about the disagreement, but this hadith will make you remember, man adraka rak'atan, faqad adraka as-salah. And so whether you agree with that position, which for example I do, if I catch the imam and I don't catch the rak'ah, I'm only going to pray 2 rak'ah when I'm finishing my salah. You see what I'm saying? But if not, I still know the issue because of this hadith. And so when we're looking at books of hadith, remember, there's going to be disagreement, but the imam is giving you his position, but don't pigeonhole yourself into just knowing the imam's position. Let it be a reference for you for the disagreement. That's why Imam Malik said that this chapter is about what? Fi man adraka rak'atan min as-salat. If you only catch a rak'at from the salat, did you catch the salat or not? Right? Meaning, do you have to catch at least a rak'at to have caught the salat? and the rules of the salat, the judgments that are placed on the salat. Another example of this actually happened yesterday. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday. A person catches a rak'at with the imam in a salat where the imam made a mistake. Should he pray sajda to sahw with the imam?
Yes.
Why?
Because he's part of the prayer.
Because he's part of the prayer. Man adraka rak'atan min as-salat, faqad adraka as-salat. So you should pray sajda to sahw with the imam. Whoever doesn't catch a rak'at with the imam and the prayer that the imam made a mistake, should he pray sajda to sahw?
I would think so. He's praying his own prayer.
He's praying his own prayer. So he doesn't pray sajda to sahw because he's not part of the salat that had the mistake. So he doesn't pray sajda to sahw.
Or what if he makes 5 rakat? Let's say.
Were you there when he made the 5th rak'at?
You caught the
You caught the 5th rak'at.
You caught the you missed the first
You
one.
missed first, second, third, and fourth.
And you got all 4.
You got 4?
You got 4.
Then you were in the salat that the imam made the mistake.
But the previous,
Do you make up a 4th one?
Yeah.
No. Right? You don't make up a 4th one because there's only 4 rak'at. But the issue would have been, what if you didn't catch anything but the 5th rak'at? Right? Were you part of that salat even though that rak'at doesn't count? Right? But if it counted to the imam, Allah knows best, it counted for you. You caught that rak'at. And so you would have to pray sajda to sahw in that circumstance. But that's a good question. Right? And that's how this hadith, man adraka rak'atan min as-salat. Was that rak'at part of the salat?
it was added.
So if you say no, then you say you can't count that rak'at.
I'll say yes because
If you say yes, then you count that rak'at.
5 rakats.
You see what I'm saying? But that's how this, we're not here to answer, but this is how you would start figuring out that question. Whoever, man adraka rak'atan min as-salat. The imam prayed 5. Did you catch a rak'at of that salat? If you say yes, adrakta rak'atan. If you say no, that salat that the imam prayed was false, and so it wasn't part of the salat, and you caught that rak'at and you prayed with the imam in that rak'at, do you count that rak'at?
Wait, I'm a little bit confused.
Yes,
Why
I
the
do.
5 rakats?
He made a mistake.
Oh, so you have to do an... Okay.
So he prayed 5 rak'at.
Okay.
On his 3rd rak'at, he thought it was his 2nd,
Oh, okay.
and then
I
his
got you.
4th, he thought it was his 3rd, and so he made a 5th, and nobody said subhanallah.
Oh, okay.
Right? Everybody was busy thinking about what they're going to eat after lunch.
Right.
And so they prayed 5 rak'at,
Uh-huh.
and you caught them in the 5th rak'at. You came in late,
Oh.
and they were in the 5th.
Oh.
Did you catch the salat or not?
Yes.
If you say that rak'at is from the salat, then you caught the
You
salat.
didn't know because you...
You didn't know. You walked in. You just
Yeah.
and they praying. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
And then they give salams, and you finish your salat, and somebody says, "Hey, you know that was the 5th rak'at you caught."
I caught the salat though.
If you believe you caught the salat, alhamdulillah. If you believe the 5th rak'at is not part of the salat, then you would what? I got to pray a rak'at. And I'm not part of that salat because I didn't catch it, because I didn't catch a rak'at. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, these are all examples of how this hadith would be used. Another example, Uthaymeen mentioned something like this. This is something that happens on a lot of people. You are praying voluntary prayer, and then the iqamah is called. What do you do?
Get up and go pray further.
When?
Whenever he says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Oh, well.
Okay. Some scholars say, إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَةِ. When the salat is established, then there's no salat except the obligatory salat. So when the mu'adhin says the iqamah, you have to do what?
Stop.
Some scholars say you have to stop praying right away. No matter where you are, stop praying. Right? So that's an opinion because the iqamah was called. Other scholars say, no, you can keep praying. If you think you can finish before the takbiratul ihram, or before the statement of the imam, ameen, or before missing the first rak'ah. Because if you catch the first rak'ah, then you've caught the salat from the beginning. لأن من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك الصلاة. So if you catch the first rak'ah, then you've caught the salat from the beginning. Uthaymeen has a statement: if you've prayed your first rak'ah of the voluntary prayer, then you can continue. But if you didn't pray your first rak'ah from the voluntary prayer, you have to stop. Why?
Because you're going to catch the first rak'ah.
Because if you prayed a rak'ah, whose salat is it? It's yours. You caught the salat, so you can finish it.
Oh, yeah.
But if you didn't catch a rak'ah, have you prayed yet?
No.
And so since you didn't finish a rak'ah, you haven't prayed yet, stop praying, right? And go join the imam. And so these are just different ways that this hadith can be applied. Whoever catches a rak'ah, then he's caught the salat. If you don't know, do you count this salat or not? Do you get the judgment of this salat or not? Are you included in this salat or not? This hadith proves, man adraka rak'atan, faqad adraka as-salat. That's what this hadith could mean. Like, that's not what Imam Malik means by this hadith. Even though Imam Malik uses that understanding, and this is the understanding that a lot of the Salaf used to give to this hadith, why do we say that this is not what Imam Malik meant by this hadith? It could be an aspect, but when we look at the rest of the hadith that Imam Malik mentions, do they have anything to do with catching a rak'ah? Let's look at the next hadith. What's the next hadith? Somebody say it. We got it in front of us. What's the next hadith?
قال حدثنا مالك عن نافع أن عبد الله بن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه كان يقول إذا فاتتك الركعة فقد فاتتك السجدة.
Okay, this doesn't help us much in seeing a difference. This is the same thing as the hadith of Abi Hurairah, just inverse. من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك الصلاة وإذا فاتتك ركعة فقد فاتتك السجدة. Meaning, well, no, this can help us some, seeing what Imam Malik meant by this hadith. إذا فاتتك الركعة فاتتك السجدة. If you miss the rak'ah, you miss the sajda. What is a rak'ah?
Reading, just. Yeah.
If I ask you, explain to me a rak'ah.
Start, stand,
Standing,
then you go to ruku,
Fatiha,
Fatiha, then surah maybe, and then ruku,
ruku',
then back up to
standing,
then sajda,
sajda one,
then back to
sitting,
then sajda again.
then sajda again. This is a rak'ah. Qiyam, Fatiha, ruku', standing, sujood, sitting, sujood. This constitutes a rak'ah. Right? If you do this twice at Fajr time, you've prayed Salat al-Fajr. Right? As long as you add to it tashahhud and salam. But a rak'ah is this motion. This statement of Ibn Umar doesn't make sense. Whoever catches a rak'ah, then he's caught the sajda.
Obviously, right?
Obviously, because the sajda is part of what?
The rak'ah.
It's part of the rak'ah. So how can that make sense? If you caught the rak'ah, you caught the sajda. That's obvious. So that can't be what he means. Because that would be a useless statement.
Yeah, you don't even have to say that.
You see what I'm saying? So that can't be what he means. What does he mean?
Maybe he means.
So wait a minute, there's a hadith that says, that's what I was going to say.
من فاتته إذا فاتتك ركوع فقد فاتتك السجدة. If you miss the ruku', then you missed the sajda.
Right.
Let's say you caught the people in sajda.
You missed it.
Did you catch them?
No.
Why not?
Because the ruku, once he gets up from
Because you
ruku,
missed the ruku'. So if you miss the ruku', then you miss sajda. No matter what else you catch, if you miss the ruku', you miss sajda.
Is there a difference of opinion before ruku or after ruku?
We're about to talk about that.
Okay.
So this hadith, from the meanings of it is إذا فاتتك الركعة فاتتك السجدة ومن أدرك الركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. What is he actually saying? من أدرك الركوع من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة. وإذا فاتتك ركوعا فقد فاتتك السجدة. So this is showing us the minimal amount that a person is considered to have caught the salah.
Right.
So from the ways we can understand this hadith, it's a hadith about time. Well, we got one of those already. We don't need it again.
Right.
We can understand this hadith is a hadith about virtue. But I mean, the virtue is from Allah. How you going to tell Allah how much He's going to give? And Allah already told us He's going to give us the virtue if we had a good niyyah. Get out of here with that. Some of them say, no, this hadith is about the rules of the salah. Now, that's strong. That's a good one. And that's the way a lot of the Salaf used to use it. But is Imam Malik using it that way? When we look at it closely, we see it's like Imam Malik is using it a different way. It's like Imam Malik is using it to say, if you catch the ruku', then you've caught the salah. And if you miss the ruku', then you miss the salah. And this is the opinion of the majority. That if you miss the ruku', you miss the salah. Instead, some of them say it's agreed upon, which means the inverse. If you catch the ruku', then you've caught the salah. But there is some classical disagreement. There is a hadith that is weak from Abu Hurairah that even if you catch the people in ruku', you miss the salah. Even if you catch them, you missed it. Right? Man adraka an-nas wa hum ruku'an fala yu'taddu bihi. Whoever catches the people in ruku', then he should not count it. But that statement on Abu Hurairah is weak. And what is more clear on Abu Hurairah is what? Man adraka rak'atan min as-salah faqad adraka as-salah. And how do we know that's more clear on Abu Hurairah? من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك السجدة ومن فاتته قراءة القرآن فقد فاته خيرا كثيرا أو خير كثير. Right? And that last narration of Abu Hurairah, how does this show us what Abu Hurairah meant by this hadith? Right? Why is Imam bringing this narration? Why is Imam Malik bringing this other narration of Abu Hurairah? To show us what the narration of Abu Hurairah means.
The weak one.
No. Why is he bringing the balagha? Why is he bringing this last narration of Abu Hurairah? من أدرك الركعة فقد أدرك السجدة ومن فاتته قراءة القرآن فقد فاته خير عظيم خير كثير. Why is he mentioning this narration?
To let us know it exists.
To explain the hadith of Abi Hurairah, right? The hadith of Abi Hurairah that we got at the beginning of this chapter, we're saying there's a lot of different ways you can understand it. Which understanding should you have of it? Imam Malik is telling you the understanding that you should have of it is what? If you catch the ruku', you've caught the salah. Even if you what? Even if you miss Fatiha. As long as you catch the ruku', then you've caught the salah. But if you don't catch the ruku', then you've missed the salah. Even if you miss Fatiha. But if you miss Fatiha, you missed a lot of good. What good did you miss if you missed Fatiha? What's the lot of good?
27.
You caught the jama'ah. So you get the reward.
Conversation.
Huh?
with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No, you got Fatiha again when you make it up. You're going to say Fatiha when you make up the rak'ah.
First I missed
What did you miss in that? Yes, this is good. What did you miss when you miss? Remember, you came in, it's the last rak'ah. Right? That means you didn't catch Fatiha at all with the Imam. What did you miss since you never caught Fatiha with the Imam?
The whole prayer, the prayer.
Ameen. Ameen. You didn't catch Ameen, did you?
No.
So what happens if you don't catch Ameen? What happens if you catch Ameen?
Previous sins of
All your previous sins are forgiven. Man wafaqa ta'minuhu ta'min al-imam, then you get all of those previous sins forgiven. Did you catch that? So whoever misses Fatiha, whoever misses reading Fatiha, al-Quran, then he missed a lot of good. But did he catch the salat?
Yeah.
But that's a reward in the salat that you can't get. See what I'm saying? Because you didn't. Did you get the reward of praying 25 times better than by yourself? Allahu Akbar. But did you get the reward of saying Ameen at the same time the Imam said Ameen? So whoever misses Fatiha, then he's missed a lot of good. That's what some of them say the meaning of this statement is. The point of it is that Imam Malik is showing us how to understand this hadith on this opinion. That if you don't catch the ruku', then you didn't catch the sajda. But if you catch the ruku', then you've caught the sajda. The hadith of Abu Hurairah is being explained by the statement of Abu Hurairah later on, showing us that Abu Hurairah's opinion is that do you have to catch Fatiha? Do you have to catch Fatiha?
You don't have to.
No. And we know that this other narration on Abu Hurairah is what? Where he says if you catch the people in ruku', then don't count it.
Weak.
It has to be weak. Because Abu Hurairah narrated this hadith and he used to consider that if you miss Fatiha, you still caught the rak'ah. And so therefore, we know that this narration, not just by its chain, but also by its meaning, is weak. But from the scholars who held that position were al-Bukhari. Al-Bukhari held the position that if you didn't recite Fatiha, you didn't catch the rak'ah. Huh? Because reciting Fatiha is necessary.
What about?
You see? Well, this narration of Imam Malik, we haven't talked about it yet.
Which one?
The statement of Abu Hurairah.
That's balagha.
We haven't talked about that yet. Well, that's what we got to talk about. So the point of it is that besides al-Bukhari, it's not known who used to have that opinion. The majority of the people say that as long as you catch the ruku', then you've caught the rak'ah. Right? So we have four opinions. Or we'll say four. If you catch the ruku', the salat still don't count. The rak'at still don't count. To catch the rak'ah, you have to catch at least Fatiha. That's one opinion. That's the opinion of who? Bukhari. But almost nobody else holds that opinion. Huh?
Why did you pick that?
Because he believes reciting Fatiha is necessary.
Right. So he believes that.
La salat liman lam yaqra bi right? But, and who narrated that hadith? Abu Hurairah. Right? So that's one opinion. The second opinion is whoever catches the ruku', then he has caught the salat. And this is the opinion of the majority, except they have two different opinions. One of them is, as long as you catch the ruku' before the imam raises his head,
That's what it says too.
before the imam straightens his back, meaning as long as you're in ruku' at the same time the imam is in
You
ruku',
don't have to say it.
then you've caught the salah. You and him have to be in ruku' at the same
You
time.
don't even have to say Subhan Rabbil Azim.
As long as you're in ruku',
Right.
when he's in ruku',
You're good.
you caught the salah.
Okay.
Right? So as long as you bowed your head and put your hands on your knees and the imam is still in ruku', then you've caught the rak'ah. Right? And that's the opinion of the majority.
It's just some son can tell him, hey man,
Can you yell, hey, I'm about to make a ruku', don't come up yet?
SubhanAllah.
Astaghfirullah. La. Ma yaju.
We're trying to get the reward, man.
So, as long as you're in ruku' before the imam is in ruku', as long as you're in ruku' while the imam is in ruku', then you've caught the rak'ah. Where do we get that from? Imam Malik presents it from Ibn Umar and Zayd ibn Thabit. من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك الصلاة. Right, so as long as السجدة, sorry. من أدرك ركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. So as long as you're in the ruku' before the imam raises his head from ruku', then you've caught the sajda of that salat as well.
Right.
Right?
That explains that.
The hadith of Ibn Umar as well. إذا فاتتك الركعة فقد فاتتك السجدة. Well, how do I know I didn't miss the sajda? إذا أدرك من أدرك الركعة من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه من السجود I mean من قبل أن يرفع الإمام رأسه فقد أدرك السجدة. And so now we see the sani, we see the action of what Imam Malik is doing. It's not just random narrations he's bringing. Why bring these narrations? Balaghani. Why do I need that? These are maybe weak narrations. Why bring all this? He's bringing it to let you understand this is how this hadith means, right? The second opinion, or actually the third opinion, is as long as you say Allahu Akbar before the Imam comes up, then you've caught the ruku', even if you didn't make a ruku' yet. Right? As long as you are in the salat before the Imam comes up, then you caught the rak'ah, even if you didn't make ruku' yet. Right? And some of them say, even if the Imam came up, but all of the people didn't yet. Because if the people are still in ruku', then the salat is still in ruku'. So for example, and we'll see how this works differently. You enter the masjid from the back, right? The first opinion is you come into the masjid, you see everybody in ruku', you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, go into ruku', get comfortable, all of that. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. Imam says, Sami Allahu liman hamida. You raise up with the Imam. Did you pray? First opinion? No. Yeah, why not?
Because you didn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha.
أخي ما قرأت سورة الفاتحة. And there's a hadith of Abu Hurairah, من أدرك الناس وهم ركوع فلا تعتد به. Whoever finds the people and they're in ruku', don't count it. Akhi, but that's weak. Akhi, that's a weak narration on Abu Hurairah. Akhi, but Bukhari. In the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Whoever doesn't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then his salat, in one of the narrations it says khidaj. Khidaj. What's khidaj mean? Yalla hat.
Invalid.
Huh?
ينقص
Yanqus is naqis. Akhi, don't worry about that. It can be deficient. Whoever misses Fatiha, then he's missed a lot of good.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So it can be deficient.
That's what I was thinking.
But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man adraka rak'atan faqad adraka as-salat." And this person caught the ruku'. Akhi, but the salat says, "Man adraka rak'ah." He didn't catch the rak'ah. La la la, ya akhi. Imam Malik, he brought the hadith of Abi Hurairah, "Man adraka al-rak'ah faqad adraka as-salat, wa man fatathu قراءة الأم القرآن فقد فاته خير عظيم يبين أن معنى الركعة هنا ركوع." طيب.
But it's better.
Second scenario, you walk into the masjid, you're at the back of the masjid. The imam is in ruku', the people are in ruku'. What do?
Walk to the ruku'.
You walk to the ruku'?
No. Go line up.
You walk up to the people, you get into the line. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Right? And as long as you caught the imam while he was in ruku', as long as your hands was on your knees and your head was bent, while the imam was still down, you caught the rak'ah. Right? That's clear. That's easy. No problem. What about if you said Allahu Akbar from the back of the masjid and went into ruku'?
That wouldn't count.
I come into the masjid. I'm in the back of the masjid. I see the imam and the people in ruku'. I say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And I go down into ruku' in the back of the masjid. And I start walking in ruku' to catch the row.
Never heard of that.
You didn't line up in the salah though.
You never heard of that? I did. I said Allahu Akbar in the last
I know
row.
you said Allah, but you didn't line
And I
up in
made
the salah.
ruku'. I did, eventually.
Starts with
see
the
somebody
salah,
do
right?
that.
Yeah, I eventually got there.
You did? Allahu Akbar.
I eventually got there.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
What if?
Some people say no. Because you prayed behind the row by yourself.
Right.
You didn't join the.
You prayed behind the row by yourself. And it's prohibited to pray behind the row by yourself.
Yeah.
You ever seen the people that want to pull somebody out the front row when there's only one guy in the second row? Why do they do that?
Everybody.
Because you can't pray behind the row if you have a choice by yourself. And if I came into the masjid and the rows is way up here and I come into the back, Allahu Akbar, ruku' and start walking, They say, Akhi, you prayed behind the rows by yourself and you had a choice. So that rak'ah doesn't count. Some of them say, well, wait a second. Abu Bakr. You never heard of the hadith of Abu Bakr?
Yeah.
Abu Bakr from the Sahaba, he came into the masjid and made ruku' behind the rows of the women. Because the Prophet's masjid, right, the women prayed in the back. It was one masjid, they prayed in the back. He entered from that door, the women are in a row. He made ruku' from behind the row of the women. Behind the women. Allahu Akbar. And ran to the salat and ruku'. When the salat was over, the Prophet ﷺ, who was that? Abu Bakr said it was me. The Prophet said, Zadak Allahu hirsan wa la ta'ud. May Allah increase you in diligence. Don't do it again.
Yeah, don't do it again.
Don't do what again?
The ruku' from the back of the woman's in a line.
But the Prophet didn't say don't do what again.
What?
The Prophet didn't say don't do what again. He just said don't do it again. What is it?
Walking from the back to the front like that.
Ruku. What do you mean don't do ruku?
He didn't tell him to re-pray.
He just told him don't do the ruku. And
He didn't say that. He just said don't do it again. But he didn't tell him to re-pray.
He just made a mistake.
He didn't tell him to re-pray.
Right.
but don't do
You
it.
said praying behind the row by yourself invalidates the salat.
Well, he caught the ruku' though with the saf.
Oh, wait a second. We didn't mention that.
Oh.
He prayed behind the row by himself.
Right.
Did he pray?
No.
Why not? The Prophet didn't tell him to re-pray that rak'ah. The guy who prayed bad, what did the Prophet tell him to do?
Who prayed bad? He told him to redo it, right?
ارجع وصلي فإنك لم تصلي.
He did not pray right. Yeah.
Did the Prophet tell Abu Bakr to pray again?
He didn't tell him, man.
He just said what?
Don't do it again, though.
What is something that you should not do that didn't invalidate his salah?
He started from the back of the woman's row.
Running.
Or he ran.
Oh yeah.
Don't run to the salah.
How you know he ran, though?
Because he said, I ran to the row.
He said, I ran.
Yes. And so some of them say, no, the hadith is all of it. Don't do any of it again. Other people say, no, the Prophet didn't tell him to re-pray. He told him, don't do it again, i.e. don't run again to the salat. How do we know? Because then another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ثُوِّبَ لِلصَّلَاةِ when the salat is called, فَلْيَأْتُمْ وَعَلَيْكَ السَّكِينَةِ then you should go to it with sakina. Whatever you catch, pray, and whatever you miss, make up.
Okay, so he didn't miss the rak'ah.
And so he didn't miss the rak'ah. Because the Prophet didn't tell him, hey, you still got a rak'ah to make up.
And that proves the ruku' part.
And it proves the ruku part. So we see that you can make a ruku behind the salah. Some people say, well, wait a second, no. That's only because he caught the saf.
Yeah, he caught the saf.
So if you catch the saf in ruku, then you can count it. Because you were in ruku at the time you were in the rows. So you didn't pray behind the rows.
How do we know he didn't catch the ruku'?
That's what I want to know. It doesn't mention any of that. But this is what they say.
Because if you're in the back of the woman's row, come
Well, the
on.
Prophet might say 15, 17 times, and he was running. But they say that this is him catching the row. And so since he caught the row, he was in the row, in ruku, at the time of prayer. He caught the rak'ah. Anyway, these are all different ways that this hadith is used. This third opinion we mentioned, you have to catch it at least the takbir before the imam stands up. And so if you're in the back of the masjid and the imam is in ruku' and you say Allahu Akbar and then the imam stands up. But before you could say Allahu Akbar, again, and go into ruku', the imam stood up. Did you catch the salat? According to this opinion, yes.
Okay.
Right? Because you caught the salat, takbiratul ihram, before this imam left ruku', even though you didn't catch ruku'. So they argue, did you catch ruku'? You caught the salat, but you didn't catch ruku'. So some of them say, man adraka rak'ah, man adraka ar-ruku'. And others say, no, man adraka rak'ah, man adraka salat, before the imam stands up from ruku'. And they even go on to say, even if the people didn't stand up yet, if you're behind them and they're still in ruku', then they are your imam. So like imagine a big masjid, a big salat. You don't even see your imam. Who's your imam? The person in front of you. So the imam could have stood up a minute ago, By the time, like think about Hajjatul Wada. How many people were there? 100,000 Sahabi, right? How long do you think it took from the time the Prophet made takbir till it got to the last row?
Wow.
Right? It would have took a moment, right? Because the people in the back, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. By the time it gets to the back, the Prophet might be standing back up already.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So they say as long as you catch it before the people stood up, then you've caught it.
Makes sense.
And that makes sense, right? But for me, I go with the majority. Whoever catches the ruku. If you're in ruku before the imam stands up, or if you enter the salat before the imam stands up, then you've caught the salat. The last thing we'll say about this, and then we got one more thing to talk about. Like I said, this is a little bit long, but we've covered the whole chapter. When you catch the ruku', how many takbirs do you have to do? Some of them say it is sufficient to just do one as long as your intention is that it is takbiratul ihram. So you have to say Allahu Akbar and then go into ruku'. Right? It's okay to just make one as long as it's takbiratul ihram and you have to be standing. And some of them say as long as you start standing and then you bow, it's okay. But you have to start the statement while you're standing and then go into the bowing motion. And that is counted. And when you said it, you thought it was takbiratul ihram. You don't have to make a second takbir. Other scholars say no. For you to get into ruku', you have to say takbiratul ihram, standing, and then say takbirah for going into ruku'. And if you don't do both before the imam raises his head, then you didn't catch it. And you see the difference, right? Some people say just say it once, and you can say it as long as you started standing. Even if you're bowing while you say it, it counted. And so you can see there's a shorter window for you, or a larger window for you to catch the rak'ah. While the other people say, no, you got to say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and like that you would have caught it. And so it makes a difference in their opinions about did you catch the ruku' or not. And so all of this, it's not expected for you to memorize it all in one sitting, but to be aware of it and to know that this all falls under the hadith, من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك الصلاة. من أدرك ركعة وقتا من أدرك ركعة فضلا من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك الصلاة وقتا فقد أدرك الصلاة فضلا فقد أدرك الصلاة حكما من أدرك الركوع فقد أدرك الصلاة. And like this, you understand all of the meanings that this hadith could mean. And we see that the meaning that Imam Malik most likely means is this meaning, the last of them. And that's why Ibn Abdul Barr says the way that Malik used it isn't right. Because the majority of the people use it the third way. من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة فقد أدرك الصلاة حكما. The majority of the people use it that way.
Can you use both though?
You can use it both, but does it prove that or not? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This is where he says they didn't use it the right way, right? But that's the way he used it. And it makes sense because of other narrations. And like we said, this is the statement of the majority. Even if this hadith doesn't prove it, it's a statement that they have. The last thing that they talk about in this is the way that you make up. When you catch the salat and you caught the ruku', which rak'at is it for you? Is it your first or your last? You caught the people on their last rak'ah. You caught the ruku'. How long have you been there?
That's first rak'ah, right?
So is it your first rak'ah or is it your last rak'ah?
First.
It's your first rak'ah,
Yeah, I only made one.
but which one did you catch?
I caught theirs.
The last rak'ah.
Right.
And so this is something the scholars disagree about. Some of them say that it is your first rak'ah. And that's the majority. They say that it's your first rak'ah. That means in the second rak'ah you would do what?
Sit again.
You will recite another surah with Fatiha. You would recite out loud. and then you would sit down for tashahhud, right? Other scholars say no, it's your last rak'ah. So that means when you stood back up, you would do what? Recite Fatiha and another surah. And then you would pray a second rak'at, Fatiha, another surah. And then you would sit down. See what I'm saying? And then you would pray your third rak'at, and then you would end the salah.
That's how I was thinking first time when I started.
Right? So there's a slight difference. I caught them in their last rak'at, and I had to pray 4 rak'at. I had to pray 3 rak'at. For me, it was my first. So they say when you stand back up, that is your second. Recite Fatiha, another surah, sit down. Then, after that, stand up, pray your third quietly, if it's Isha, for example, and then tashahhud for sure, all of the way you end the salat, you have to do that again, because that's not part of the rak'ah. That's how you end the salat. Other scholars say no, when you came, it was your 4th rak'ah. So you followed the imam and everything that he did, and then when you stood up, you prayed your first. Then you pray your second, then you sit down, then you pray your third, and then you finish your salat. And so it makes a difference as it relates to reciting and out loud and sitting, which one you count it as. The reason they disagree is because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he says, فَمَا أَدْرَكْتَ فَصَلِّ وَقْضِي مَا فَاتَكَ. And in another version it says, وَأَتْمِمْ مَا فَاتَكَ. Make up what you missed. And in another version it says, complete what you missed. So are you making it up or are you completing? Right? The majority say that you're completing, while the Ahnaf and other than them, they say that you're making up what you missed. And we've already talked about how the Ahnaf, to them, it's you're making up what you missed. And that's why they use it for Jum'ah and traveling the way that they do. As far as the majority, they say no, you're completing what you missed. Well, it's the same hadith, and we got 2 different opinions and 2 different words. Which one is right? When we have this situation where we need to figure out which one is right in the issue where it's the same hadith with different wordages, what do we need to do? It's the same hadith, but some people said it this way, some people said it that way, and we don't know which one is right. What do we need to do? We need to find other hadith that can support it one way or another. We don't find anything that's a decision in the issue hadith-wise, but we find an ayah. فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُمْ مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. Right, in Surah Al-Baqarah. فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُمْ مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. What's the word that Allah used? Qadha. فَإِذَا قَضَيْتُمْ. What does Allah mean when He says that? وَإِذَا أَدَّيْتُمْ وَإِذَا أَتْمَمْتُمْ وَإِذَا completed. And so we see that Allah used the word qadha in this ayah to mean what? Complete. And so even though complete can also mean make up, qadha could also mean make up, it can also mean complete. And can complete mean make up? We don't find any proof where complete means make up. So we say it must mean complete. Because this word could mean this word and this word can't mean that word. And we know that they narrated it by meaning, so it must mean this word. And so if you join the people, then for you, it's your first rak'ah. And you complete everything else, right? But it's an issue of disagreement. So all of that is the understanding of these narrations. Like this, we've finished the chapter. But there's one more thing to talk about. قال مالك أنه بلغه أن عبد الله بن عمر وزيد بن ثابت. Zayd ibn Thabit. First of all, Abdullah bin Umar, we talked about him, right? He died in the year 73 after the Hijrah, right? Al-Abid, al-Nasik. He died in the year 73 after the Hijrah. From those who were abundant in their narration of hadith. He was from the 7 who narrated the most hadith. He narrated 2,630. Right, so there's a big drop off between him and Abu Hurairah, but he narrated 2,630. This is Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, Abu Abdul Rahman, if I'm not mistaken. And he died in the year 73 from those who narrated the most hadith, and he was known as An-Nasik. There was nobody who used to follow the sunnah as much as he did, they would say, right? As well as Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit was from Bani Malik ibn Najjar al-Khazraji, from the Ansar. And he was from those who were known as Kutab al-Wahi. He were from those who used to write down the Quran for the Prophet ﷺ during the Prophet's life. And also from his qualities is that he is the one who gathered the Quran at the command of Abu Bakr after Umar had suggested it to him the first time the Quran was gathered in one book. The person who actually did the legwork of gathering the Quran in one book was Zayd ibn Thabit. And he said about that action, if they had asked me to move a mountain pebble by pebble, it would have been easier than gathering the Quran in one book, right? Because even though he was a hafiz and somebody who memorized the Quran, he couldn't rely on just his memory. Because I'm gathering the Quran in one book, I had to get it from everybody, everything that they had. And I had to find where it was written, that they had it written down. I had to hear their memorization of it, and I had to compile from all of them. And this is from the ways that we know the Quran that we have today is the same Quran that they had then, because when it was written down for Abu Bakr, it wasn't just written down from one person's memory. It was written down from the compiling of all of their information. And that's why he says, and I, you know, the last ayat I can find was this ayat. I think it was the ayat, I forgot what ayat it was, and I found it with so-and-so. I mean, even though he knew the ayat, he couldn't include it until he found enough people who had narrated it, and the last one he found was with so-and-so. Likewise, when Uthman commanded them to gather the Quran a second time, they didn't just suffice by the gathering that was done by Zayd the first time. They had to regather it again. And he commissioned Zayd and 3 people from Quraysh to go regather it. And he told them that if you all and Zayd disagree about a word, then write it down in the language of Quraysh, because that's the language of the Prophet. And like this, the other dialects of the Quran were done away with during the time of Uthman, because the dialect that remained was the dialect of Quraysh. Right? And then from that, you still get the different qira'at, but they're not from the ahruf as-sab'ah. Zayd ibn Thabit, he was born 11 years before the Hijrah. He was born 11 years before the Hijrah. That means when the Prophet ﷺ made Hijrah, he was 11 years old. And when the Prophet came to Medina, they presented Zayd ibn Thabit to him. And they said that he's a young boy of ours who has already memorized 17 of the surah that you came with. So at 11 years old, he had already memorized 17 of the surah that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ, he suggested, he said, it comes to me letters that I don't want everybody to know what's in them. And so he asked Zayd, can you learn Hebrew? And in some narrations it says Syrianic. Can you learn Hebrew, or in some narrations Syrianic? And Zayd said yes. And he said, and so half of a month didn't pass until I was an expert in it. So he learned Hebrew or Syrianic in around 17 days. And he used to be the one that if the Prophet ﷺ wanted to write to the Jews, the Prophet ﷺ would have Zayd ibn Thabit write it for him. And if the Jews sent the Prophet a letter, Zayd ibn Thabit would be the one to read it for him. And this is in spite of how young he is, and in spite of how many other Sahaba that were Jewish, like Abdullah bin Salam, the leader of the Jews of that time, accepted Islam, but the Prophet still employed this task with Zayd ibn Thabit. And that shows you the value of Zayd ibn Thabit. And Zayd ibn Thabit, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned him in that hadith where he specified the qualities of the Sahaba. When he said the most compassionate of my nation to my nation is Abu Bakr. And the most severest of them in the religion is Umar. And the shyest of them is Uthman. And the best judge out of them is Ali. And he mentioned, he said, and the one who knows the most about inheritance is Zayd. And we see this, that a lot of the scholars, they, like Shafi'i rahimahullah, they prefer the madhab of Zayd ibn Thabit when it comes to inheritance. Zayd ibn Thabit had such a high position that they said that the knowledge of the Sahaba who would give fatwa, right, who would be able to talk and give answers to questions, there were 6 of them. Umar and Ali and Ibn Mas'ud and Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, but in the middle of all of them was Zayd ibn Thabit. And in reality, the madhab of the people of Medina, right, a lot of it is the madhab of Zayd. Right? When we talk about the madhab of the people of Medina, you're thinking who? Maybe Ibn Umar, maybe Salim, maybe Ibn Abbas, but Ibn Abbas is in Mecca. You're thinking maybe Abu Hurairah. It's Zayd ibn Thabit. When Zayd ibn Thabit died, Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, the habar of this ummah has died. The scholar of this ummah has died. And maybe Ibn Abbas will replace him.
Maybe.
Right? And so this shows you that Zayd ibn Thabit was from the most knowledgeable and educated of the Sahaba. Right? I know that the first time I came across this, all of us know Zayd ibn Thabit, but I was surprised to learn that this is who he was. Like the madhab, madrasa to Ahl al-Hadith in Medina, it goes back to Zayd ibn Thabit. Just like the people in Kufa, they go back to Ibn Mas'ud. Right? That's Zayd ibn Thabit when you hear the madhab of the people of Medina. So anyway, that's Zayd ibn Thabit. He died in the year 45 after the Hijrah, and they disagree up until the year 55. Some of them say he died 47, 51 like this, up until 55. But he died somewhere in that range, 45 to 55 after the Hijrah. Zayd ibn Thabit. From his children, there was that scholar from the Fuqaha al-Sab'ah, Kharija ibn Zayd ibn Thabit. In fact, all of the Fuqaha al-Sab'ah were children of the Sahaba, except Sulaiman ibn Yasir. He was from the freed slaves. And Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, he's from the grandchildren. And likewise Utbah, he's from the grandchildren. But all of them were from the Sahaba's descendants, except Sulaiman ibn Yasir. Now, so that's Zayd ibn Thabit. So Abu Malik is saying that in this first narration, أَنَّهُ بَلَغَهُ, it reached me. This is what they call in hadith, balaghat Imam Malik, where Imam Malik tells us about something, but he doesn't mention any chain. And the scholars disagree. First off, we should know that the Muwatta of Imam Malik is from the most authentic books. Instead, any hadith that has a chain in Imam Malik, they say it's at the same quality as Bukhari and Muslim. A hadith that has a chain in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, it's of the same quality of Bukhari and Muslim in undeniability. The reason why they didn't include it in the books of Sahih, they don't say Sahih Malik, is because he added into it hadith without chains, or with people missing in the chain, as well as opinions. And so because he added all of that into the book, they didn't include it from the authentic books of hadith. Like if we notice, the majority of what we've memorized so far, has it been a hadith or something else?
There's something else.
It's been something else. Right? We've probably only memorized like maybe 3 or 4 hadiths so far. The majority of what we memorized has been something else so far. And that's why they don't include the Muwatta in the books of Sahih. But there's no doubt that if Malik mentions a hadith with its chain, then it's as authentic as Bukhari or Muslim. The question is what Malik mentions without a chain. And with Malik mentions without a chain, there's 2 types. A mursal, where he mentions a hadith missing a person. Well, a tabi'i will tell you about what the Prophet did. Like the hadith of Ata bin Yasar, أنه جاء رجل إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسأله عن وقت صلاة الصبح. Right? فسكت عنه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم حتى إذا كان من الغد صلى الصبح حين طلع الفجر. ثم صلى الصبح من الغد بعد أن أسفر ثم قال أين السائل عن وقت الصلاة فقال ها أنا ذا يا رسول الله فقال ما بين هذين وقت. This hadith of Ata, he's a tabi'i, he didn't meet the Prophet. So that's called a mursal of Imam Malik. The marasil of Imam Malik, he considers them to be a proof. And likewise his madhab, and it's a strong view, right? That it's a proof, right? Even though there's a person missing. But as far as Shafi'i, he says no. A mursal hadith, there's no proof in it. It's a weak hadith. But that's easy, because there's at least a chain. It shows you that Atta believed that information at least. But what about the statements where Malik says, I heard? That's what we call the balaghat, where Imam Malik just says, I heard. It reached me that the Prophet said this. He doesn't mention any chain whatsoever. The scholars disagree about it. Some of the scholars say the default in it is that it's weak, because there's no chain. We can't verify it. And since this is the case, we don't know where Malik got that information. It has to be weak. Other scholars say, no, it's authentic. The balaghat of Imam Malik by themselves are authentic, regardless of the chain. Why? Because Imam Malik was who he was, and he would not narrate from weak people, and he mentioned it in a way of proving something. And so this shows us that he believed it. And then they say, additionally, all of the balaghat of Imam Malik have been researched and found a chain for. But this is a question. When they say all of the balaghat of Imam Malik, they're talking about, and Allah knows best, all of the balaghat that are hadith, that are the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. A chain was been found for them. And this chain, Ibn Abdul Barr, he mentions it in Tamheed. He has a whole section at the back of the book where he just connects the balaghat of Imam Malik. He connects all of them except 4. He couldn't find a chain for. And those 4, Ibn Salah later on comes and connects them. He finds chains for them. But these are the hadith that Imam Malik said, I heard. These narrations in front of us aren't hadith. And for that reason, you can't find them in al-Muwatta and Tamheed with a connected chain. Alhamdulillah, on some research, I found chains for both of them. So the first one is the narration of Zayd ibn Thabit. It's in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah. The Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah. And remember, when we say we found a chain, a lot of times the wordage might be slightly different. Right? Malik, the way he heard it, might not be the way it was preserved for us. But in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah, there's a narration. Abu Bakr قال حدثنا عبد الأعلى and Ma'mar and الزهري and Salim and Ibn Umar وزيد بن ثابت قال إذا أدرك الرجل القوم ركوعا فإنه يجزئه تكبيرة واحدة. He says that, Abu Bakr says that Abdul A'la, on the authority of, narrated to us on the authority of Ma'mar, on the authority of Az-Zuhri, on the authority of Salim, on the authority of Ibn Umar, as well as Zayd ibn Thabit, the two of them said, if a person reaches the people in ruku', then it's sufficient for him to just give one takbirah. Right? And so this shows us rak'at, ruku'. And it also answers the question, how many takbirahs do you have to give? 1. There's another version of it in the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq, as-San'ani. He says, قال Abdul Razzaq and Ma'mar and Az-Zuhri أن زيد بن ثابت وابن عمر كان يفتيان الرجل إذا انتهى إلى القوم وهم ركوع أن يكبر تكبيرة وقد أدرك الركعة قال وإن وجدهم سجودا سجد معهم ولم يعتد بذلك. In the narration of Abdul Razzaq as-San'ani, he says that Ma'mar, on the authority of Ma'mar, on the authority of Az-Zuhri, that Zayd ibn Thabit and Ibn Umar, the two of them used to give fatwa regarding a man who reaches the people while they are in ruku', that he could just give one takbirah, and he has caught the rak'ah. They said, and if he found them in sujood, he should make sujood with them, and he should not consider that or count that amongst his rak'ah. And so this narration, Ma'mar on Zuhri, right? There's some disconnectivity there, because Zuhri didn't reach Zayd for sure. But in the version of Ibn Abi Shayba, he says Zuhri and Salim. And so that chain gives you more connectivity. And so we see that there's an origin for this, even if the version that Imam Malik said, we would have to consider to be daif. Yeah, because we don't have that wordage. And we don't know which chain. And the chain of Zuhri on Zayd, it's missing somebody, right? It's Mursal. And the chain of Salim on Ibn Umar and Zayd, it doesn't mention what that mentioned, and it's focusing more on the Takbiratul Ihram, right? One Takbirah. That's the hadith of Ibn Umar and Zayd. As far as the hadith of Abi Hurairah, I could not find it with almost anyone. It took me a while. And Albani, for that reason, deemed it to be da'if, because there's no chain for it, right? And so he deemed it in the verification of Mishkat al-Masabih to be da'if. Alhamdulillah, I did find a chain for it in Mu'jam al-Tabarani al-Awsat, in the medium-sized Mu'jam of al-Tabarani. Al-Tabarani, he says, حدثنا عيسى بن إبراهيم ابن مثرود قال حدثنا عبد الله بن وهب أن يزيد بن عياض أن أبي حازم أن سعيد بن المسيب عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه أنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أدرك ركعة فقد أدرك السجدة. Right? So that's a hadith version, but it doesn't have the addition of the وَمَنْ فَاتِهُ الْقُرْآنِ فَقَدْ فَاتِهُ خَيْرٌ كَثِيرٌ. And it's almost the same thing as the hadith that is authentic. مَنْ أَدْرَكَ رَكْعَةً مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ فَقَدْ أَدْرَكَ الصَّلَاةِ. Right? It just uses the word فَقَدْ أَدْرَكَ السَّجْدَةِ, which is the word that Imam Malik used. So in any circumstance, even though we can't find a chain for the statement of Abu Hurairah, it's almost the same thing as the hadith that he mentions. And that hadith is well known. Most of them narrated from the version of Malik, but it's also narrated from Sufyan and others, as Al-Awza'i and Ubaydullah bin Umar, in all of the 6 books, as well as their versions from Ibn Umar and things like that that support it as well. So these balaghat, there's some history to them. They're not make-believe. But as far as the actual chain, we don't have them, but there's enough support for them that we can find something similar to support it. And as we said, the topic is not something that's disagreed about. We'll stop at that amount. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Apologize over the longness, but we finished the chapter, alhamdulillah. And that's what we wanted to do, was finish the chapter. Next time we'll pick up with the statement of Malik, Bab, ما جاء في تفسير دلوك الشمس. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت. لا ما اذن.